Hello, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emma Nagy, and today we're going to be talking about how to prepare for postpartum. And I'm breaking it down into two key areas. I'm breaking it down into what to prepare for baby, and then we're going to dive deeper into how to prepare you. Because if this is your first time tuning in, that is exactly what this show is all about. I help you prepare yourself mentally, emotionally for birth and also for postpartum so that you have a smoother, more easeful entry into motherhood and take really good care of yourself as you do it, because I know you're going to be pouring so much of your energy, your time, yourself, and your love into baby. So, this show is really all about you. So, we're going to have a big focus on that in this hopefully short and sweet episode. But on that note, for those of you who do want to go deeper, I have very recently released my brand new masterclass all about preparing you, the mum, for your fourth trimester for a more peaceful and present start with your brand new baby. It is for you if you're a first or a second time mum or a third time mum, fifth time mum, doesn't matter. But it's all about you and your emotional well-being. And it's the piece that doesn't really get taught that much, but is my specialty. So I will drop a link for that for you below. You'll find it at mylighterway.com/masterclass, but I'll drop a link for you below, and that is free to watch and sign up. So you can watch that there for the emotional prep piece. So yeah, for those of you who've been around the show for a while, you'll know I redo this masterclass every year, and I always like to make it better and better. And this one is my favorite, most like real raw one I've created yet. It's very like conversational style. I do have some slides as well for my visual learners out there. But yeah, that really is going to go deeper into that. But my hope is to take some of the highlights and then also kind of the broader area of like how do you prepare for postpartum and put it into this short, sweet episode for you. All right, so we're going to start off. How do you prepare? Maybe you're in your second or third trimester, you're starting to think ahead. Maybe you've already started planning for birth and you're like, okay, like obviously planning for birth is a big deal and super important. I actually teach that too around the birth mindset piece of preparing for birth because your mind plays a huge role in birth. And obviously, birth is important, but what comes after birth is like just as or maybe more important because it is the start of your brand new chapter with your baby. You'll have a newborn to care for, and life just looks a lot different after you have your baby. And so I think it's really wise and smart to be prepared for that as well. So I'm so happy that you clicked on this episode and decided to give it a listen. All right, so let's start with newborn care. I find a lot of places on the internet, a lot of like prenatal education classes, probably a lot of your apps do a really good job of sharing with you the basics. But I also know there is so much information out there. So I've pared it down to what I would consider the most essential pieces to prepare for when it comes to newborn care. So we'll dive into that piece first. All right. So, for newborn care, how to prepare for postpartum. Okay, here's what I would boil it down to. First, and really the main piece is educating and informing yourself around what to expect. So, what to expect when it comes to caring for a brand new baby. And I've distilled it down even further because I do think it's really helpful to obviously like be informed and to know, what's normal, what's typical going in, because what that is going to do, it's going to just help you like question yourself less. It's going to help you question your baby less about, like, oh my gosh, are they supposed to eat this much? Like that kind of thing. If you just know, like, oh yeah, like newborns eat like especially after the first few days, sometimes they're a little sleepy at the beginning, but they eat like every couple of hours, or some will cluster feed, which means that they eat like close together very frequently. They have tiny little tummies. Like it's helpful to educate yourself with that kind of stuff. Because yeah, it does help you question less of like, is this normal? Is this not normal? While you're like in the thick of doing that, like of feeding them, It's so helpful to be like, okay, yeah, like I need to expect this. I know this is normal. And then you can kind of like mentally prepare and imagine what life will look like when your newborn is here and know that it's normal for them to, wake up a certain amount of times and to eat a certain number of times. So when you're doing your research of what to expect with a newborn, I have a few areas that you can look up if you're not quite familiar yet. Um, and or to like ask your midwife or doctor about or learn about in prenatal class. Like there is really good prenatal education out there when it comes to baby care. So, for example, some of the things I would recommend that you look up, and feel free to take notes if you want, or just have them in your mind and flag yourself if there's something that you want to look up later based on the list I'm going to share. Okay, number one, number of poopy diapers and wet diapers, and just like the number of changes that you will experience at the beginning or to expect at the beginning. Something funny about this, so at the very beginning, newborns go through a ton of diapers and then so you actually spend like a surprising amount of time changing diapers. And when you're in the thick of it, you might think like, oh my gosh, is this like babies aren't potty trained until they're like 3, but like on average kind of thing. Is this just what it's going to be like? Is this going to be my life? And like, no, knowing what to expect is really helpful for this part because then you can remind yourself, like, oh, wait, nope. It's just like really concentrated at the beginning where it's like so close together and it does like spread out and is like less of a time suck later on. So, poopy diapers, good to know what to look for. Also, even just how those changes, because at the beginning, the poop is really dark, like almost black and like very sticky and like tacky. And then like it changes. So these are all things you can be monitoring to just like see how your baby's like health is doing and just see if they're kind of on track with like what you would expect. And then alongside just the peace of mind of knowing what to expect and how it can help you kind of reduce the mental noise because you just like know that's normal already. It can also help you just like flag questions that maybe you'd ask your provider or like, maybe you're like, okay, this happened and that I know that's not the average. So then it just helps you like take a proactive approach to things and yeah, just take care of your baby well. All right, so that's one thing, diapers. Another big thing to look up and know what to expect more about is feeding your baby. Because at the beginning, with your baby, the biggest things, the biggest ways you are going to be spending your energy with them is like feeding them, getting them to sleep, and changing them, like changing their diapers and their clothes. Like that repeat, like is a cycle at the beginning, like around the clock cycle. So it's just really helpful to know, you know, okay, how many times, like how often or how much in a day and a night does a newborn normally sleep? Like something, for example, I didn't really know to expect till I looked more into this, is that newborns, you'd think they, because they like sleep all the time, would have like a super early bedtime. But no, like babies' circadian rhythms and babies' sleep cycles don't start to become like predictable and like level out and mirror more the day and the night cycles for quite a while. And so some newborns go to bed like super late. And what I mean by that is they'll start their longest sleep stretch, if they have one, like pretty late, like maybe past your normal bedtime. So these are all just good things to be aware of and look up. And like I said, some babies for the first 24 hours or so after birth will sleep a bit longer. So just look up things like that about like what to expect for a newborn sleep. Or hopefully your prenatal education class would cover that kind of thing. Because again, that's another big area of focus. And then, like I kind of already touched about, feeding frequency, feeding techniques. If you're planning to breastfeed, take a breastfeeding class in pregnancy. Some babies come out just knowing how to latch and just can drink milk easily. And other babies, it's actually more common for it to be a learning curve for you and also for your baby. And so I found I've had babies, both of my babies had very different experiences. So the first one came out not knowing exactly like how to do it. And I also had thankfully taken a breastfeeding class, but even with that, it was challenging. But it was helpful, like really helpful to know like what a good latch should look like, how to help your baby learn how to have a good latch. So that's just like another thing that I would look up when you're pregnant is, you know, how to latch your baby, or if you're planning to formula feed, like what kind of formula to get, how much they should be getting, things like that. And if you're breastfeeding, it's also helpful to know about things like how your body um, responds to your baby, which is very cool. So you'll like and learn about feeding on demand. So that's a really good term to look up. It's like what is feeding on demand? And essentially it just means that you are responding to your baby's cues. But also you can initiate like if you have a sleepier baby and they're not eating that much, again, they have tiny tummies, so it's good to, wake them to eat at the beginning, especially as like their weight starts to come back up after birth, because it's common for babies to lose a bit of their birth weight. But these are all things as well that your healthcare professional will help you track. But it's just good to be in the know yourself. And for me, anyway, I love kind of taking ownership, responsibility, some sense of control, even, or just be in the know about like the key phases so that I like know what to advocate for or I know what to ask about. And it just helps like I A enjoy learning, but B, I just think it puts me in a more empowered position because I just know what to expect. And I want that for you as well. I want you to know what to expect and for that to just help you and your baby have a smoother start together. All right. So those are some of the what to know for your baby. And then the other piece with newborn care that you've probably started thinking about, especially if you started putting a registry together, started planning the nursery, is like baby essentials, like essential items for your baby. And I've like distilled it down to three. Obviously, there are like a bajillion baby things on the market, but I would say like the top things you need with a brand new newborn are diapers, wipes, a car seat if you're giving birth in a hospital, a bassinet if you're planning on them sleeping in a bassinet beside your bed, and onesies. But really, the top three, if I had to choose, diapers, wipes, and onesies. Sorry, I have notes and I like couldn't read my writing for a sec. Onesies, something comfy for your baby to wear. Everything else is like extra and whatever you want to do. All right, so that's it for the newborn care. I wanted to keep that part fairly short and sweet because I wanted to focus more on preparing you for postpartum, because that's the stuff that is covered usually only at a basic level in standard prenatal classes or at your doctor's appointments. And obviously, it's really important that like you're a big player in this as well. Your well-being is so important for this whole transition. So let's go into it a little bit. And I've narrowed it down to three different areas. So when it comes to postpartum recovery and postpartum care, I imagine a lot of you are probably thinking of like, okay, you've just given birth. And so a priority for you, along with looking after your baby, is going to be recovering from birth and just supporting your own health and recovery after labor and delivery. So that's a big one, physical recovery. Some things help with that, like, being healthy in pregnancy helps you also have like a healthier recovery usually after your baby is here. So just kind of carrying that healthy lifestyle through. And I'm not meaning like working out right after you have your baby. If you're working out in pregnancy, that's going to help you with postpartum recovery, very likely. But I just mean if you just have that value of taking really good care of your physical health now, that's just going to support you to keep through in the ways that are actually doable with a newborn later. But then obviously there's the physical recovery after birth. So for this, you can get the essential items for like a if you have a vaginal birth or if you have a C-section. And obviously, if you know which one you're having ahead of time or which one you plan to have, you can get whatever you need for each item or for each type of birth. Um, for vaginal births, for example, like some things that I would recommend are a peri bottle and one that squirts from like when you turn it upside down. That just helps you just like stay clean because obviously you're not being able to like scrub or wipe that area, especially if you get stitches. But even just so, it's just like a nice gentle way to stay clean. I like the one, I think it's by Frida Baby, but there I know there are like tons of different brands that have it, that it does have like kind of like a V-shaped nozzle at the end. And again, it works when you're holding it upside down. Sometimes if your hospital gives you one, it's just like a very standard one. It doesn't have like the elongated nozzle. So not as good, but again, still fine. All right, pads and diapers. I got both. I wasn't sure exactly like what I would want, and I ended up liking that I did have both options. So I definitely went with like the diapers at the beginning when the bleeding was the heaviest, and then I like transitioned to pads like probably like a few days or like a week in, and then kind of like trickled down from there. Also made padsicles, which if you haven't heard of that, they're essentially pads that you put in the freezer. You can like squirt some witch hazel on, and that helps with swelling, reducing inflammation, and it's just like nice and soothing after birth. So you can make those ahead of time as well. Just pop them in your freezer. There's tons of recipes on Pinterest. I was gonna do like a fancier one with I think it had like lavender and stuff in it, but then my intuition at the last minute was like, no, just go with the witch hazel, and I'm glad I did because I feel like I have sensitive skin, just like simpler sometimes is better. So that was what I did. But again, this is not medical advice. For those of you tuning in, my podcast is not medical advice. Yes, I'm a doctor, but I'm not a medical doctor. I have my PhD in mental health promotion. So I specialize on the more emotional side, keeping you healthy. But I also do love to do research and I love to share the tips that I've found like that I've researched along the way or that I really like or that I've tried guinea pigged on myself work for me. And so I always do like a blend of stuff here. I do a blend of like science-backed stuff, do a blend of just what I've personally tried, like as a real mum myself. And so I always encourage you take what feels like valuable and good and useful for you for educational, inspirational purposes, and then do that. And then if there's anything ever in doubt, like for example, the witch hazel thing, like you can always talk to your doctor, you can always do your own research as well. But I just wanted to throw that little disclaimer for those who are new to me and that my specialty really is like the emotional side. That's my passion, but I also feel the full responsibility to give you like when you think of postpartum, obviously the emotional side is important, and we're going to get into that next. But there's also a huge physical element, and you need to take care of yourself physically. So that's why I add that in because I'm like, um, I want to make sure that you are prepared for that piece as well. All right. So, yeah, pads and diapers. I would recommend the pads that don't have that blue wicking, which unfortunately a lot of the common um, brands have that. Because I heard this in pregnancy and I was like, oh, I could totally see this. They're kind of plasticky. And if you get stitches that are also kind of plasticky, apparently they can kind of stick together. And obviously that'd be painful. So, like, want to avoid that. So I got the kinds of pads with no wicking. And I just feel like that's a safe, logical bet. All right. Physical recovery. Another thing you can consider is just like pain medication, like Tylenol, Advil. I always had that on hand, and that was very helpful at the very beginning. And then the other thing that I used a lot, mostly my first pregnancy, maybe not my second postpartum, I mean, because I just like had already breastfed for so long, but nipple butter. That stuff is gold at the beginning when your nipples are like, what is happening to me around the clock? I just needed that at the beginning and then I didn't anymore. But some of you may also benefit from sorting yourself out with some of that. Okay, so I think that covers the big piece of the physical recovery. Obviously, you're going to need to rest as well. People hate on the advice sleep when the baby sleeps. I love that advice. I'm such a nap girly. I love my full night's sleep, but I also really valued being extremely responsive and waking up for my babies and being the primary person that woke up with them in the nights because I wanted to breastfeed and I just like wanted to develop that strong attachment from the beginning where they just like knew they could always count on me, and that's the role that I wanted to have. So with that being said, I love the advice sleep when your baby sleeps because I did that and I'm so glad that I did that. And people are like, yeah, Emma, but when did you do the dishes? And the answer is I did not at the beginning. I did not. I did not make any meals. I did not do anything at the beginning, and I highly recommend you do that too. But anyway, I go so much deeper into a postpartum plan so you can start to create yours in my free masterclass. So I will get off my soapbox and you can dive more into that in the masterclass. And again, I will link it for you below. The other piece I actually go into more in that, but is another piece in that masterclass, but is another piece of your care after your baby is and relates to Emma, if you didn't do the dishes, who did kind of thing. It's just like your supports, like your people around you, those key relationships in your family, maybe your close friendships, but also the resources in your community around your people, to just really help make this a smoother start as possible for your baby, but also yourself, so that you don't feel like you're doing it alone, even if you are the one that's mostly responding to your baby's needs. You feel supported in that entire journey and process. So I think postpartum support and thinking more about that is a really valuable thing to do. And pregnancy is the perfect time to start thinking ahead to what that support looks like. And again, if you want to dive deeper into that, because in the masterclass, I share like a whole section of that masterclass is around the types of support you can get from your people and just to help you start thinking ahead and envisioning what you would want for yourself. Watch the masterclass for that because what you're going to want to do is have some conversations with like your partner or maybe your mother or your in-laws or whoever's around you while you're pregnant. Because what that does is it just helps set up the plans and the expectations and your reality when you're in it to more likely be an environment and a situation where you do feel really supported and where everyone is on the same team and you're all on like the same team together with the ultimate goal of you and your baby having just a wonderful, great start and entry into the world together. All right. My third piece, which I can't help myself, I'm not very good at spoilers or building the suspense because this is an area I'm so passionate about. So I've already touched on it in multiple points of this episode, which is very classic me. Um, but this is, and I'm just so passionate about it, A, because I think it's so valuable, important, it's going to help you. But B, I'm like, not enough people are learning about this, talking about this, and I just feel like it's a big part of my purpose and responsibility and privilege to get to share with you. So it's the emotional side of preparing for postpartum. And like I said, like people don't really talk about this. People talk about what to expect in terms of your emotions. They say what to expect in terms of baby blues or what to expect in terms of, anxiety or depression. And like that doesn't feel that empowering. Like it's good to know, but it doesn't feel that empowering to me to be like, oh, great, so I can just expect these scary things and be left with zero tools to move through them. I have, for those of you who are new, an entire course, programs, postpartum preparation, um, method and support all around this. And it's because your emotional well-being postpartum is so valuable, and there are ways to move through it with less stress. When you're emotionally prepared for postpartum, as well as just knowing what to expect, you just feel like more resourced and resilient through it. Like you feel more grounded through it because you have tools to move through the baby blues. You have um, tools to, and you've put in the preparation steps to help lessen your chances of postpartum depression or anxiety, or more empowered to respond if you do start to feel those things. Um, so, postpartum prep, my favorite, most valuable piece that I think carries you through not just the newborn stage, but years and years into motherhood is the emotional foundation and the emotional prep piece. Because those are just like life skills that you'll carry through being a mom, through navigating every first, every transition, every new chapter with your growing family. Um, any like bouts of anxiety, like it just helps bring you back. And I just think pregnancy is like this perfect portal to prepare yourself, your mind, your body, your soul for this transition into becoming a mum. Um, and I feel like we have nesting energy for a reason, so you might as well use it to lay a really solid foundation. So, on that note, I would love to invite you to watch the masterclass. Again, it is free to watch. It is just over 2 hours in length. So, pick a time, like maybe you have time this evening or now or whenever in the next few days, like before you forget, is always what I recommend. So, for me, that's normally in like the next 12 to 24 hours. Choose a time, put it in your calendar, sign up for the link, and then get comfy, make a cup of tea, have a snack. You can watch it with your partner if you want, and watch the masterclass. And inside, I'm going to teach you the number one thing most mums miss in their postpartum prep, and then also the most common challenges people tend to face, but then the most important thing that you can be doing to help make this whole transition not just easier, but like enjoyable on yourself and your baby. Because the end of the day, my whole goal of the work that I do and what I hope you get from this masterclass is get a really deep understanding of the possibilities, but also like the practical, tangible strategies that you can use to prepare intentionally for this transition and then help yourself through it. And I cover 5 different elements of emotional preparation that you probably won't hear anywhere else, or maybe like a couple bits and pieces, but you're not going to hear it in this way because this is my signature method. It is based on my past 15 years as a researcher in the mental health promotion field. And that's not a field that is that common in the sense that I focus on prevention. I focus on keeping you healthy. So a lot of people, when they think of mental health, they think of like therapy or go on medication for depression or anxiety, whereas in like the treatment side, but my goal is for our emotional well-being, which affects every single one of us, whether you're prone to anxiety or depression or not. And I love to help keep the vast majority of mums as healthy as possible. Um, and because obviously our health isn't guaranteed, but there are things that we can do to help decrease our chances of depression or anxiety or being overwhelmed as a new mom. I also love giving you the tools to just feel more like resourced and be able to respond through it. And what that does is you are less likely to go through newborn life and go through motherhood from survival mode, which unfortunately way too many mums are doing. And it's common, but I would say it shouldn't be our normal. So it's common, shouldn't be our normal. And I hope that all of this together will change that. And that's why I created my method It's called the My Lighter Motherhood Method. It's why I created my postpartum prep and support course called My Lighter Motherhood. And it's why I create free content, like my masterclass, like this podcast, because I want you to enjoy this chapter, I want you to enjoy every chapter of motherhood. I want you to be one of those mums that you're like, I actually loved the baby stage. Like, yeah, I was tired, or yeah, there was a lot to figure out, but I just loved it. And I just soaked in my tiny babies. And I want you to relish and soak in every single chapter that is ahead for you and your beautiful family. So that is it for today. And I will link the masterclass for you below. You can go register now, and then you'll have it there in your inbox, ready to watch, hopefully in the next 12 to 24 hours or whenever you decide is going to be the best time for you. All right, my loves, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next one.